After my 12th, probably my first intention was to join Indian Army. People who don't know me from far would find me an introvert.
Okay.
So that's where I got rooted to all IR issues and all that stuff. And then primarily shifted to telecom. From telecom, I went to restaurant business, and from restaurant to insurance, and now
Wow.
I am in healthcare. Interesting journey for 22
Any
years
industry left over, we've covered them all. Welcome to the Advantage Engage podcast, which is a podcast focused on learning from leaders across the world and understanding how leadership works, how HR works, and how employee engagement works. My name is Smriti. I'm one of the co-founders of Advantage Club, and I'll be the host for the podcast today. So today we have a really amazing guest with us today. Allow me to welcome Mr. Hanish Mohan Nambiar, who is the HR head of Apollo Pharmacy Limited. Mr. Hanish has amazing experience across various industries and has been kind enough to meet us in Hyderabad and do the podcast with us today. Welcome, Hanish. Welcome to the show.
Thank you, Smriti. Thank you for inviting me. So I've been in different panels earlier, but this is the first podcast for me.
Oh, wow.
Let's see how it goes.
No, I'm excited for that, and I'm so glad that we were your first podcast. So super excited for this, and I think it's going to be a really engaging and amazing conversation.
Sure.
So Hanish, instead of me talking about your background, I think it'd be amazing if you can tell the audience about yours. And just to give a backdrop to the audience, Hanish has had a very diverse experience. I think you have done maths, you've done computer science, and then life sciences, and then you went into HR, which is very interesting. Like, you don't see that transition happening much. So how has that been for you?
See, so it's an interesting question to start with. So my father is in army, and throughout the two generations before him was also in army. So we were always into this army background. And as you know that in army, people are posted once in 2 years to different locations. So that's how my upbringing has happened in different states, different schools. And similarly, the choice has been like to go from one stream to another. And then after after my 12th, probably my first intention was to join Indian Army, but probably because of some health reasons we could not. And the next things which I thought of in my mind is to get into people management, and that's how I took this MBA in personal management. And then I thought, like, at that point of time, we thought that law would be an interesting subject to look at, because Indian laws governs our workplace. So I thought law is a better option for me to get into for starting my career as an HR. So that's how it has been like. And then now, as you said, different industries. Of course, I started in an audit firm, primarily doing HR audits, and slowly went into training in a textile company. So that's where I got rooted to all IR issues and all that stuff. And then primarily shifted to telecom. From telecom, I went to restaurant business, and from restaurant to insurance, and now
Wow.
I am in healthcare. Interesting journey for 22
Any
years
industry left over, we've covered them all. No, but law is something which I think is something which is very rare for HR individuals to do. But I think it would have gotten you a different kind of a skill set, which most HR individuals don't get. So
No, rather, I think HR should have some understanding about Indian laws.
Correct.
And that goes long way in your career.
Correct.
Because if you see any workman, it is guided by certain laws in terms of his health, benefits, and pay structures and all that stuff. So having a basic understanding, I would prefer all HR people who are having a career in HR should have some understanding about law.
Yeah. And it's also interesting that you've done so many different types of industries, right? Have you seen different approaches to HR in different industries. Like when you move from, say, healthcare to insurance to, say, retail, how does the approach to HR change? Like, is it all the same, or are there different nuances in
No, Smith, it is different in different industries. Primarily, I can take the example of Airtel. So when I started the journey in Airtel, primarily, you would also remember those times they were coin boxes, right? Which used to be a prevalent way of communicating. And that used to kind of get a lot of businesses at that point of time. And slowly, over a period of time, it moved into phones. When phones became cheaper, the voice became cheaper, and then moved into data.
Yeah.
So in my 6 years of experience in Airtel, primarily the shift has been complete from coin boxes to data. so you also have to adjust according to the business dynamics of that, and how does HR has to kind of really adapt to those new business environment. Similarly, if I work in insurance, primarily it's basically works on first movers advantage. Primarily, whoever is able to post his advisors first in a branch or institution is able to get the business. So you have to work accordingly. In healthcare, it's all about customer experience and customer empathy. So we'll have to kind of adapt to the business needs of that organization or that segment. So it has been different in different companies.
Now, you made a good point about empathy, and I think from an Apollo Pharmacy standpoint, empathy is one of your core principles. So, would love to learn more about how Apollo Pharmacy started out, and how big is the landscape? How many employees do you have, and how many stores do you have, and how do you tackle this empathy?
It's an interesting story. The origin of Apollo Hospital. Chairman was a successful surgeon back in US. And it happened that one day when he came to India, he saw one boy dying in front of him because of not availability of treatment facilities in India. That's how the origin of Apollo Hospital began way back in 1983 in Chennai.
Wow.
And the next step in that process was, although we could establish a hospital, but there were not a place where you could get genuine medicines. I'm talking about 1983, 84, when there were a lot of spurious drugs in the market. And that was when our chairman decided to venture into pharmacy business. And that's how the first pharmacy was born in 1983 in Chennai. And as you said, empathy plays a very important role in healthcare, primarily, and pharmacy being the last delivery point for healthcare system. We have to be very, very empathetic to the customer who walks in, because primarily, if you go to a restaurant, primarily you go there for having food, enjoyment, whereas when a customer walks into our stores, primarily some of his relatives are ill back home, or sometimes he is not well. So we have to be very, very empathetic about the customers who walk in and listen to him very patiently. That's the essence of healthcare.
Yeah. And I think you also mentioned that there is a pledge which everybody does in the morning. Can you tell us?
You're adding to, I think I missed one point of your question. So basically, we have 55,000 employees.
Wow.
And the pledge is what you're talking about. We take it very regularly every day. All 55,000 employees.
Wow.
It's a promise we make to the customer, promise to the store, and promise to our chairman. So these promises are done every day across all stores without fail. Primarily to kind of ensure ourselves that we don't get out of the culture and the values which our chairman have built in.
Yeah.
So that we don't forget it, and we live that pledge daily in our stores.
Wow. And these 55,000, I think out of them, 20% are corporate, right? And rest are all retail. Spread across how many stores?
So we presently, as on today, we have got 6,700 stores across India. We operate in almost all the states.
Wow.
80% of my employees are at the store, and 20% are functions which are based out of our office.
Wow. So imagine 6,700 stores every morning taking that pledge. That's some culture you've driven home, right? It's not easy to do that.
It's not easy. So, as I wanted to tell you more about, every day we almost service 1 million customers.
Wow.
1 million customers every day. Come rain, come strike, we have to keep our stores open for the benefit of our customers.
Wow. So, when you have such a diverse workforce and you have so many locations, it's hard to manage them, right? Well, how has Apollo Pharmacy approached that employee engagement problem, especially when you have such a huge scale, and from a branding standpoint also you're like a household name, right? So how do you maintain that culture? How have you enabled engagement for these diverse set of users?
So, as you rightly said, we have 6,700 stores spread across every part, nook and corner of India. And how are we differentiated from other retail stores? For example, if you take any other retail stores, you will have 30 or 40 people in one premises. Whereas in our case, it is a box kind of an stores where we have 5 to 6 people in one store. So that's how dispersed we are. And as you rightly put it, engagement is a very difficult issue which we have to face every day, because same sort of communication has to go to all the 6,700 stores. So what we have done is we have a great foundation in the name of Pratap Reddy sir, whose culture has been able to kind of replicate in all the stores. So, and all my leaders who are now managing a regions are basically the product of that era and deep rooted in what you said about empathy. So our leaders reinforce that belief every day to the store members. And that's how we have tried to able to bring alive the culture values in our stores on a daily basis. But as you said, yes, it is difficult proposition to kind of manage that 6,700 stores and ensure that same set of values are driven by those store members on regularly daily.
Yeah, and I think from a work hour standpoint also, because you have so many shifts, you would have still some people working longer hours, because there might be some people who might not show up, and because you only have like 6, 7 people per store, it would be hard to also keep them motivated. So, do you run incentive programs, recognition programs for these guys?
Yeah, we do have recognition programs. As you rightly said, like, yes, we have to keep our stores open, come what may. Even if it is a flood or even if it's a strike, we have to keep the stores
Even in
because
COVID, it's an essential service.
essential service. You can't keep it closed. So yeah, some in rare cases we do have to kind of stretch them little bit because for the sake of the customers. But we have a definite problem because we tell all the employees that your job is not a 9 to 5 job. It's about healthcare. It's about understanding the customers' needs and deliver those services. So it is more than a job. So that's how we have built the entire workforce around. And we have a recognition program where we try to kind of see that those people who live those culture of empathy and who have the ability to listen to our customers are recognized regularly. We run those best employee of the month, best pharmacy store of the month, and all that stuff very vigorously, and to see that they are motivated. Because the first transaction and the last transaction at 11 o'clock in the night should be same.
Correct.
There should not be any dip in the service.
Correct. No, that's very interesting, and especially for store employees, right? Running different types of incentive programs, it kind of also not only motivates us, it motivates them. It also makes them feel that the company really cares about them and their efforts are not going unnoticed, and that's very interesting. And I think from a landscape perspective, also from Apollo Pharmacy, like mostly it has been brick and mortar stores, right? Now with the advent of digital pharmacies in the world, I think Apollo has also gotten into that. So can you talk a little bit about that? Is it a little challenging to do both digital and physical pharmacies with delivery? Because today's consumers' behavior has also changed.
Yes.
And you have two types of consumers. You have the, like my dad's generation, who still wants to get something from a physical pharmacy. And then there's my generation who wants to just order everything online, doesn't want to speak to anybody. So has that been a shift in the way you deal with customers?
Yeah, you got it right. I think this shift has happened post-COVID because what we have observed is pre-COVID, most of our footfalls which used to come into our stores were all old age senior citizens who want to get their medicines on time. So they want to walk into the store, as you said, talk to our pharmacists, understand the dosage, how it has to be taken, and build relationship with them, and have a long sustaining business with us. So, but the entire shift has happened after COVID. where people started more looking towards preventive health. People have started looking at wellness as one of the top area of concern. So the after the COVID, what I can say is a number of people who at 18-25 years have started coming to our stores. So they expect something different. So probably they need to understand more about the product, about the wellness, skin, and all that stuff. So that has been a challenge. And as you said, lately, last 3 months, there is also a kind of focus on quick commerce. Where you have to deliver the medicine within certain period of time. So that also we have been trying to kind of master it, because we have started this quick commerce business in select towns, cities and towns, where we are promising the customers that within 19 minutes we will be able to deliver your medicines. So yeah, a lot of changes happening in this last 3-4 years since the onset of COVID.
Yeah, and I think this is also something which would change from an upskilling standpoint.
Yes.
That enabling the store workers to handle a phygital kind of a structure where you not only have people coming to the store, but then there is a person who's also delivering at home. There is a digital function where you have orders coming in and you are getting that delivered in a specific period of time. What other future skills do you think are needed as this retail and well-being landscape evolves in the future?
See, as you said, like so people are now trying to kind of switch. Sometimes they come on stores and buy the medicine, or sometimes they wanted to kind of have it through online services. So we have to keep both the options open. Both brick and mortar as well as online presence will go simultaneously, hand in hand. But yeah, there is so much difference which has come in. People started asking questions about what needs to be done, how the product to be used, what are the formulations and all the stuff. So for which my employees have to be ready with an answer. So, and they want the same set of experience what they have seen in online and offline. So they don't want to kind of create a difference between what offline experience is and what online experience is. So they want to get the same set of experience. So that is becoming a challenge for us in terms of upskilling our employees to give that same set of experience to the customers. So yes, so that's being a big challenge for us.
Yeah. And from like an employer branding standpoint, I think Apollo Pharmacy already has most of it set, because from a branding standpoint, Apollo Pharmacy means trust, right? Just to give you an example, like my dad, he once ordered his insulin needles from like a random pharmacy because they were giving like 30% off. But those needles, even though they looked original, they turned out to be fake. So from a branding standpoint, once you order something from Apollo Pharmacy, you feel that, okay, this is safe, this is real, this is authentic. There is already a lot of branding which has been put in, which makes Apollo Pharmacy an exciting place to join for a person. What other initiatives have you taken in terms of branding to make it more exciting for people to join or retain in your company?
See, as I said, what differentiate us from other retail company is we are the last mile delivery point for healthcare system. So we deliver medicines to our customers. So that makes it a different job than any other grocery retailers which we have. So we always brand our company as a point where it's more about service rather than a 9 to 5 job.
Correct.
So that's how we have built the culture around it, so that everybody, even the lowest person, the staff at the store, believes that I'm doing a service to the society in terms of giving the medicines and helping the employee, the customers to kind of recover faster. So that has been the culture behind every employee doing exceptional services whenever a customer comes in. Yes.
Right. So I think the whole ideology that you are in the business of saving lives, that becomes a very sticky factor for people to stick around, to stretch. And of course, the recognition and incentive programs which you run on top of it would help much more on top of it as well. Interesting. And I think if you just generally, if you talk about HR, you've had so much of experience in so many industries. What do you think, from an ever evolving landscape standpoint, what do you think are the future trends in HR which are most exciting to you?
See, if I talk about my industry in specific, one thing which basically interests me is as I said in my previous discussions, is that customer behaviors are changing fast, and we need to kind of match to that expectations. So one thing which I wanted, which I am greatly looking for, is how I can upskill my employees the faster way. People has the ability to learn and unlearn faster. That's where I feel that there is a lot of job or technology where it can help it in terms of getting that done. So that is one. And second is, how do we recognize our employees? So that at least they remain motivated in the service of the customer. And the third technology which I'm really looking forward is how AI can basically take over some of the administrative functions where HR is currently involved in, so that HR can put their entire energy and focus on things that matters.
Yeah, yeah. And I think with the fast paced AI advent which has happened in the world today, that day is not that
Yeah,
far
yeah,
away.
right.
So eventually every function, every manual work is going to be replaced by
Replaced by-
technology.
Yes, yes.
Where AI will just get it done for you. Very interesting. And I think personally, as an HR leader, you would also feel the need to stay updated and abreast with the latest things. So, how do you stay updated and informed as an HR leader?
First thing, what we do is basically have a network of people around who have got the same passion as me. And in terms of understanding what are the kind of a new things, technology which is coming up in our area domain, that's where I use mostly to kind of update myself. And then I have a set of mentors whom I interact with them on a regular basis to see what are the trends which is catching up in HR field. And the last and the most important is, I usually have a network of people at the millennial stage where I can see like what are the upcoming trends,
Correct.
which is going to kind of hit HR in the next decade.
Yeah.
So these are the three avenues through which I get updated regularly.
Yeah, and with the new Gen Z,
Yeah,
Gen Y stages, I think they will have their own set of things we'll have to learn from. Now there's Gen Alpha, there's Gen Beta, all of those are coming up. Their jargons are different. Nobody knows what they say, but I think those are things we'll have to learn also, how to manage this type of workforce in the future. Now this has been great, and I think we'll do some fun rapid fire questions.
Sure.
Okay, so my first rapid fire question to you is, what is the one myth about HR which you think is wrong?
So one myth which basically everybody carries is like HR is all about hiring and firing and salary processing. So basically that's where the myth, everybody understand HR is all about, but HR is much more than that. It is about capability building, it is about upskilling, it is and career enhancement for the employees and all that stuff. So that's a myth which everybody carries. It's basically HR is about hiring and firing.
Yeah. And ironically, salary processing is payroll. It's not even HR.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, just because the OL goes from the HR side, people end up assuming that it's HR. No, that's great. And my second rapid fire question is, if you were not in HR, what would have been your alternate career path?
The normal course would have been, I would have joined armed force like
Really?
my father and my grandfather. That would have been my choice.
Wow, army.
Yes.
Nice, interesting. And what is your one superpower which you think has brought you here today?
I think discipline. Discipline is one thing which have been inculcated from the beginning, and that plays a very important role especially in HR, where it's all about process and all that stuff. So discipline has been one thing which has made me to the place where I am right now.
Yeah, and I think from an army background,
Yes,
discipline
yes.
comes naturally.
Yes.
Most army families I've
Yes.
seen, they're all very
Yes,
disciplined. Next generation needs to learn that.
Yeah,
I think
of course.
that
Yeah.
they struggle with discipline, and they don't think discipline is important.
Yes.
They think as long as you get things done, it doesn't matter. But I think when you have to cross a certain level in life, you need to have a certain level of discipline.
Rightly said.
Yeah, no, that's amazing. And what is the one thing about you that people don't know?
So one thing which I basically people who don't know me from far would find me introvert.
Okay.
But people who are very close to me, who are in my circle, would obviously have a different opinion about me that I'm an extrovert. So I have that kind of a thing which people outside would feel that I'm introvert, but actually I'm an extrovert in that sense.
So you're an ambivert.
Yeah, what you can say. Yes.
That's interesting. And lastly, and this is a fun one, if you had an unlimited HR budget, what would you do first?
A very difficult question because we don't get unbudgeted HR. So if I've given the choice, I would do three things. One is about wellness of our employee. I would rather spend extra bit of money on wellness of our employees because in that depends the productivity for future. Second is I would rather spend money on rewards and recognitions because I need to keep my workforce motivated for challenges ahead. And the third is I would like to kind of spend considerable amount of money on capability building. That is a benefit for both the organization as well as for the employees because employees would gain in terms of higher productivity and employer would get return in terms of higher productivity, employees in terms of their career enhancement. So these are the three places where I would like to spend money if I've given a choice.
Yeah, I wish you get that unlimited HR budget, at least for the second one. But yeah, no, this was a lot of fun, and thank you so much for spending your 30 minutes here with us today. I know you're a very busy person, and it was nice to be here in Hyderabad. And kind of, I love the weather here. It's a relief from the
Yeah,
day.
the weather is really good today.
Yeah,
Thank you very much for inviting me to this podcast.
thank
You very much.
Yeah, this was amazing. Thank you. Hanish.
Thank you.
Well, that was an amazing conversation with Hanish, and I'm so glad he took the time out to meet us today. We have many more such conversations lined up for you. So stay tuned for more episodes coming in on Advantage Engage.